For this video, I'm taking you through a sample essay for the literary analysis of a song. Of course, you're going to use your guide in your textbook for MLA format, for the general formatting of the essay, and for the in-text citations and works cited. So you'll have your heading in the top left. You need a title that is centered with all the major words capitalized. I have the title of my song in my title. So if I use the song's title in my title, then only the song's title goes in quotation marks. Because every time I use a published work, and a song is a published work, you need to indicate that title with either italics if it's a longer work like a novel or a movie, or in this case this is a song, which is like a poem, and so the song title goes in quotation marks every time I use it. So of course you're going to have an introductory paragraph that starts with a hook of some kind. It could be an interesting thought, it could be a startling fact, it could be a scenario, which is sort of a made-up story, or it could be a bit of history. I highly recommend that you find a song to analyze, and I've offered you two samples or possible song choices that you can use that have a lot of history implied in them, alluded to in them is the proper literary term for that. Because it gives you something to research beyond just Googling, what does this song mean? I want you to go beyond that and research things that are mentioned in the song. Don't just look for someone else's analysis of the song. You create your own by finding interesting references or allusions in the song and write about those after you've done some research on them. So between the first sentence or two, that's the hook, and the thesis statement, which should be the last sentence of your introduction, you need some background or context. What's happening in the song? When was the song written? Perhaps is a good little piece of background or context that you can give between the hook and then the argument you're making, which is the thesis. So for your argument, you're going to write about how certain literary devices, or you could use one literary device. For example, if you're doing a historical analysis, oftentimes you'll find 3 allusions that you can write about, and that would cover the whole body of the essay, and you could focus each paragraph on a different allusion made in the song. So that makes it easy. But you want to say how whatever literary device or collection of literary devices you are looking at in the song convey a message. That's the simple way to talk about the theme. So the theme is what the author is trying to say in a way that's unique. It may be something that's been said before, like love hurts, racism is terrible. Things that have been said before are said by poets and songwriters in unique ways that make people pay attention or see it in fresh ways. So look for that for your theme that you're going to discuss and write about specifically in your thesis to set up the whole paper. Again, the thesis goes at the end of the introduction and again stated in a new way at the beginning of the conclusion. So for your body paragraphs, you are going to be required to quote the song every time in each body paragraph because you're examining certain lines in the song, lines that contain meaningful allusions or metaphors or symbols in the song. So you'll quote the lines of the song like you would quote lines of a poem. You will also be required in each body paragraph to not only quote lines from the song, but also from secondary sources. So the sources that you use to understand better what a part of history that's alluded to in the song means, or what a symbol means. What is the history of the color red, for example, if that is one of the symbols in your song you're analyzing. So you can quote those two sources, the primary source, the song, and the secondary source, the thing that you are researching about the song, in any order. Use, quote the song first, and then you can talk about how the song mentions a specific thing that you want to analyze in those lines, and then bring in the secondary source to show how that works and to make your point about how the lines make that work and point to the theme by using those words in the song. Or you can do as I've done here in this first body paragraph. I went to a source, a secondary source, immediately because I wanted to explain what a certain thing mentioned or referenced or alluded to in the song is. I wanted to explain what that is. And I wanted to use the actual source that is part of that explanation. And what I was quoting was going to be more than 4 lines of text. Now, it was sort of on the hairy edge, so I probably could have gone either way. But if you are quoting anything that is going to be more than 4 lines of prose, and prose is anything that's not poetry, your song lyrics actually are poetry. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But if you're quoting more than 4 lines of prose, you need to set it up as a blocked quotation. And the way you do that is to write a full sentence, or what's known as an independent clause, as your introduction to the quotation. So you're not going to just say the website explains, comma. You want to finish that sentence. The organization's website explains the intent of its supporters. That's an independent clause that could be a sentence by itself. Now, it doesn't end with a period. It ends with the colon, because I'm not finished with the whole sentence or the whole idea, because the quotation I'm using is part of that idea. So I don't want to end with a period there. I want to have the colon there. And then when I quote the source, I do not have quotation marks at the beginning nor at the end. It just appears the way it appeared in the original source. And then here's a difference too. So notice the period at the end of the quotation. That's where it goes at the end of a blocked quotation. And then my source title is here. It is the title of the article that was found on this web page. I didn't love that just about was the title of the article, but that's the title. Now, if I had several sources that were called about, then I would go ahead and add maybe the website title here after about, and I would do it as it appears in the works cited, which I can see at the end of the essay. So I would include that source as well. So I would include this whole thing, just the title of the website in italics right after the title of the article. And that's only if I had several that started with the word about. You might have that. So I just wanted to explain that. And maybe you won't, so it may not apply. So again, the difference with a blocked quotation is the period goes right at the end of the quotation and not after the parenthetical citation. Now, when I quote the song lyrics, here, song lyrics are just like lines of poetry. So we're going to quote those by song, or sorry, by line. So you want to number the lines of your lyrics so that you can easily access what line numbers you're quoting. So you're going to have several options. You can quote 1 to 3 lines, and you will do that all on the same line. But if you're quoting more than 3 lines of a poem, which is different from prose, prose is more than 4 lines. For poetry, if you're quoting more than 3 lines, you have to use a block quotation format. So again, you'll create a full sentence or independent clause, end it with a colon, and then give the lines exactly as they appear on the page where you found your lyrics. So here are the lyrics for the song for me, and I just went ahead and wrote them how they appear. So where the line breaks appear, that's where I put my line breaks. Now, at the end, you don't have the period at the end if it doesn't have a period at the end. Like my lines didn't have a period. That was a little weird. So I just left it as it appeared in the actual source for me. So that's a little different. Oftentimes there's a period at the end if you're actually quoting a poem. But if there's not, you can leave it off. And again, there's no period at the end of the parenthetical citation when it's a blocked quotation, but you do still put, and instead of where you might just have page numbers or an article title, you're going to write the word lines, hit the space bar, and write the line numbers. So 17 through 21 in this case. Also notice after a blocked quotation, I don't start a new paragraph because I always need to comment on what I've just quoted. So this should line up. The next sentence should be commenting on what I've quoted, so it should come all the way to the left. It should not be tabbed to indent. So if you have that set up where it automatically indents, you'll have to backspace and fix that so that it's all lined up here. And then in my explanation, I used another source, but you're only required to use one quotation from the primary source and one quotation from a secondary source. However, if you would like to add secondary sources or continue on with the primary source in a single paragraph, you are welcome to do as much research and writing as you like. Really, the parameters of the assignment are that you have a minimum that you need to reach. If you go longer, I certainly am welcoming you to continue writing. Just make sure what you write is useful and focused on the topic. It's easy to get unfocused and write about several topics. You want to consistently write on a single theme. Okay, and you really just need 3 examples of that theme happening in some type of literary device throughout the song. Here's a good example of quoting just one line of a poem or song, and I just write the lyricist's claim. When I talk about the song and what's happening in the song, I need to use literary present tense. So it can get a little confusing because if you're doing a historical analysis, you might write a sentence or two in past tense about that person's actions or beliefs in history. But when you're writing about what the singers sing, we are going to write about those in present tense because every time we hear the song, the singers claim or express or sing or allude to something again every time we hear it. So that's why the literary present tense is used in all literary analysis. And you're going to practice here using present tense in a literary analysis of a song. So here is how you would quote just one line. You don't have to set it up like a blocked quotation. You just give who is singing and or writing in this case and the verb with a comma, and then you quote the line. Again, here is the standard that you've learned for MLA format for a quotation, which says to move the period at the end of the line to after the parenthetical citation. So line 8 there. And some people capitalize the word line and some people don't. The key is be consistent. So I'm noticing that. I'm going to make that lowercase, or I could make both of them uppercase. But the key is, again, I want to be consistent. And since I have a single line here, it says line. I have multiple lines here, so it says lines. So that's why that is the case. Here I am quoting some prose, so from a secondary source. And I actually have I have 2 sentences in red because both of them seem to help me introduce the source. So that is why both of them are in red. I'm showing the way I'm introducing each source in red and the parenthetical citations in yellow. This one doesn't have a parenthetical citation because I introduced the source with the title of the article. And that's what happens first in the works cited. Actually, the author's name happens first in the works cited, and here's that author.